Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Opening statement: due to the current federal and state emergency declaration in Minnesota, directive to residents to stay at home and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to COVID-19 pandemic. This meeting of the Houston Public School is being conducted in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D.021, meeting by telephone or other electronic means. Due to the health pandemic, the school board determined that it may not be feasible for at least one board member, the superintendent, or the school district legal counsel to be physically present at the regular meeting location, and that it is not feasible for public to attend this meeting at the regular meeting location due to the health pandemic. Persons may monitor this meeting from a remote location by accessing the live stream of the meeting on our website or the YouTube live stream. School board members are reminded to mute their microphones or phones when you are not speaking. School board members wishing to speak should unmute their device and ask to be recognized, then wait to be recognized by the board chair. The chair will determine the order in which board members wishing to speak will be recognized. When recognized, the board member should unmute the microphone or phone, speak, and then mute their device. All votes will be conducted by roll call. Each school board member should wait until their name is called before voting. Persons monitoring this meeting from a remote location may submit a comment by accessing the feedback form on the district's website prior to the meeting. The meeting is being recorded. Access to the recording will be made available on the school district website as soon as reasonably possible. So, with that being said, let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming. We have a motion to approve the agenda. Mike Lane made a motion to approve. Gene seconded. All in favor? Roll call vote. Ron? Josh? Mike Lane? Mimi? Gene? Pete? Yes. Okay. Opposed? Public comment?
None that I'm aware of.
We have no public comment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent items? Motion made by Ron. Do I have a second? Gene? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Okay, with the consent items, if you have a question about staffing, about what is being listed here as far as the hiring or the, Pete, could you mute?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, the hiring or the resignations or retirements, this is the place to ask for that. As an example, Susie Parker is retiring. I will be posting for a special ed teacher to fill in for that position. So if you have a question about any of these, this is the time to ask about the contracts and the staff. Any questions?
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor, roll call vote, Ron? Josh? Michaeline? Michael, maybe she's
She's
flashing,
not talking.
okay, she says, I think she's saying aye.
Aye.
Mimi? Mimi? Mimi?
Aye.
Sorry about that. Jean? Pete?
Aye.
Discussion items. COVID-19 update, Corinne?
Okay, the best thing I heard on the update today is that they're moving the call. It'll still be on Thursdays, but it's now going to be, 11:30. So I will be able to get the update into the SharePoint folder, well in advance of the board meeting.
You're still not muted. It's on.
I'm new. I've got to be getting feedback,
No,
right?
no, I just muted you.
Okay.
So. You gotta turn your volume on. Where's your volume button?
Down on the bottom there.
Okay, so with this, we have, the State Department has said that we have to have 3 plans for, Ann, could you help him? I'm sorry.
Yeah, because we have feedback.
We have to have 3 plans, one as far as distance learning, one as far as a hybrid, and one as far as coming back. However, if we come back, we do have to follow CDC guidelines. They're not going to be giving us the guidance, what we have to follow with those 3 plans, until June 15th. So they've also said that they expect us to probably use all 3 of those plans at one point or another next year. So after we get the guidance, I am going to be convening a committee of teachers, administrators, and others that will be working on actually creating that plan for each of those 3 opportunities for us. And before we meet on the week of the 15th, after the guidance is there, I've got someone doing an internship, and he's going to be parsing all the numbers as far as, so we have the data as far as the bus routes. They can't give us the transportation guidance yet, because there's now new guidance, not only as far as numbers on the bus, but also the length of time students can be in an enclosed bus without worry of spread. And so we have both the small numbers on the bus and then the length of time on a bus. So we need that information, but I need to know exactly how many are on the routes, how long the routes are right now, what the length of time students are on the bus, so that we have all of that data. We also need to get all the information about the number of classes at the high school. Elementary will be easier, because, oh, Mimi, you had a question first?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, I know that, so that group is gonna get together and look at the data, and you said June 15th is when it's released?
Yes.
Okay, so what I'm hoping is that as soon as it's released, maybe we could do, maybe that group could meet quickly, and then we could do a survey to the parents. Like, for instance, with busing, I'm more than willing to drive my own children so that there's space on the bus. So, I mean, just certain questions that arise from whatever the guidelines are, then if we can quickly try to do a survey, so then people, the teachers or whoever is working on the plan know what to expect.
No.
Because I have them planned for everybody riding the bus, and we have to have extra vans go and this and that, when a lot of people are fine just bringing their kids in because they understand the situation.
Except we have to be careful there, because we can't, we have to have the bus available, so if it doesn't work for you to bring your kids in, we have to have the bus available for you too. So that's
Yeah.
also something we have to look at.
Yeah, but I just don't wanna say we can't go to school because everybody can't fit on the bus, when in reality, we didn't need the space for everybody on the bus. I'm just using it as an example, of just, it's like having half of an equation if you don't know what kids are gonna be participating in, what things and what the restrictions are. It would just be nice, I know a lot of other schools I've seen are doing surveys and getting, input from parents and thoughts, and so I think it might be a nice time when they're designing this plan, because we can design the best plan, but the students, it's all about the families and the students. If we don't get their input, we can end up with the best plan that doesn't fit for our families.
Yep, and this is jumping down on the agenda a little bit, but with the strategic planning for marketing, I've got in there surveying, and so that I was kind of thinking that we could have that kind of survey going out to parents as far as, what they would like to see, especially if we did an A and a B, how they would like that hybrid A week, B week, how would they would like that, or would it like A week, B week? So we've got that indication as well, so we know what the parents would like. It would also be good to note how many parents are, right now, and everybody has the right to change their mind, how many parents right now are uncomfortable with sending children back to school in the fall, if we are allowed to have children in the school. The other thing that the State Department said today, Heather Mueller, the Assistant Commissioner, ran the call. She said they are talking about allowing for variabilities, and this is the first time I've heard them actually say that if you are a small school or you have the space for the distancing, and you have come up with a plan where people can be socially distanced, those schools might be allowed to do the hybrid or might be allowed to bring everybody back, when other schools might not. Those other schools might have to do distance learning. This is the first time I've heard where it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. If distance learning only works for this school, everyone has to do distance learning. That's kind of the way they were talking before. Today is the first kind of glimmer of hope for us. So as we are getting all the data, as far as room size, as far as number of people that can be in a room with the social distancing, granted, the pod issue has to change, because right now by executive order, the most we can have in a pod is 10 people. That's including adults and students. We have the guidance for sports and for coaches to work with students. We've got that based on that pod of 10. And so there's not going to be any intermingling. For our summer school that is going to be face-to-face in the elementary, because we don't have any services that cannot be delivered while still following that social distancing. So since we can adhere to social distancing with the elementary extended school year students, we are going to do the hybrid model with the elementary students, and we're going to have a morning group with one teacher and an afternoon group with another teacher, and we're devising the transportation plan with that, so that will be with that pod with sanitation at the end of each week, because we are keeping them in self-contained rooms. So we're going to try the hybrid model there, and we're assuming that when school starts, that pod of 10 will expand. Right now, the state of Minnesota is with that pod of 10 due to executive order, because people have been asking. They said, well, Wisconsin's group is larger, and California just expanded their group, and can we expand ours? And right now, it's 10 in a group by executive order. So we'll have to watch further executive orders to see when that expands. The other thing is the high school league met this morning and said that June 15th is the date when coaches can begin working with the students on their teams as long as the school has a plan for social distancing and following the MDH guidelines. That was a plan that was handed to you, and it's online, at the planning session on the 28th. That does follow the CDC guidelines, it does follow the potting, and so we are going to be allowing the coaches to work with pods of 10. And so the coach, they'll have to divide the teams into pods, but then that can begin happening. The thing about that, the gym and the weight room cannot be open to the public yet. That is still closed by executive order. So if Summer Rec wanted to come in and to rent some of that, or to use the facility, they'd have to fill out the paperwork, and once again, they would have to follow that pod of 10 and to ensure us that there's no intermingling, and they'd have to fill out the liability. This also brings up the Owen-Onsgard Court. That is considered an outdoor gym. Because it's considered an outdoor gym, it's not able to be open to the public. However, since community education, we can have community education classes as long as they follow social distancing and follow all the other protocols. If someone wanted to sign up and rent, or to sign up to use the Owen-Onsgard Court, if they agreed that they would follow the social distancing guidelines and the guidelines that have been created for our sports teams, that would be acceptable. We would just have to open it. They would have to fill out the facility use form. We would open it for them. If they don't follow it, then they have lost the privilege to use that facility use form again. Questions on that? Because I know I just threw a lot of information at you fast. Ron? The facility use form would have to be, they said church groups and community organizations. So if a church group or a community organization signed up to use the Owen-Onsgard Court for a specified time, it can't just be open. I would probably go over and open it, make sure that they knew the rules, and if somebody called and said, hey, there are two people playing at one basketball hoop, or there are two people and they are having contact, or they're sharing a basketball, at that point, then that organization or that community group that signed up for the Owen-Onsgard Court would know that they have therefore ceded their ability to sign up for it again. That's, and I'm looking for thoughts. Because right now that was the ruling that came through today. But once again, it is ours and there's local control. So if you want to be, that's as loose as we can get it. If you want to keep it tighter than that, that is your choice as a board. Ron?
It sounds like a lot of work to open it and try to not discriminate against people. I would be in favor of keeping it closed until we have looser restrictions going on there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Other thoughts? Josh? We can't hear you, Josh.
Still can't hear you.
Yes.
I'm assuming you said you
We can hear you, you're just breaking up a little bit. For what we heard, you agreed with Ron and saying it's difficult, it would be difficult for us to police somebody actually following the protocols. Is that kind of?
Okay, anybody else?
Anyone else? Michaeline?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a question on the court, it's just a question for so I'll wait for it.
Oh, no, that's, Gwen and I are going to be attending a webinar next week. There are some different funding sources. There's CARES funding, there's some ESSA funding, there's some GEAR funding. So Gwen and I are going to be attending webinars to see which of those, for which of those we actually can qualify. With some of the CARES funding, some of that is based on Title I. So there is some money we can get there. We don't have huge Title I numbers, but there should be some money there. With the GEAR funding, we'd have to look to see what qualifications are needed to get that. Some GEAR funding can be used to pay for connectivity for students next fall. And that's something that we'd have to do a survey to find out how many, with Zoom, as an example, without really strong connectivity, Zoom meetings are hard because you've got someone tiling and so it's one of those things where a survey is really necessary. Any other? Okay, so that's, and then transportation. Right now, they didn't have any guidance because they said that they just had some new stuff thrown at them today. So they're hoping that by July 20, the week of July 27th, at that point, they will tell us which one we're allowed to use and what variability they're going to allow if we've got a plan in place that allows for something slightly looser than what the state is mandating. So if the state is mandating distance learning, but we can show that we can follow the CDC and the MDH guidelines with hybrid and we show our plan, then we would be allowed to do the hybrid. So that's not coming out until the week of July 27th. And Saturday of that week is August 1st. I'm thinking it's gonna be closer to the end of the week than the beginning of the week. But we'll still get it. They promised us on or before August 1st. And so that's that week.
Michaeline knows it.
Okay, Michaeline, your question or comment? Oh, did I answer it?
Oh, wow. Mimi?
Mimi?
Can I ask so I just got confused, but, so can you just recap what dates we're gonna know what information?
You bet. June 15th, we will get the guidance as far as what we need to have in each of our 3 plans. And we need to have 3 plans all ready to go because they let us know that they're not gonna give us 8 days to plan again. It might be next week you have to flip to plan such and such. They're really expecting every school to be using every one of their 3 plans next year. So we need each of the plans. It's not a generally specific plan anymore. Each of the 3 have to be detailed and with a high level of specificity where we're looking at what worked this spring, what didn't work. The academics, the testing, that all has to be in there because we're not gonna be given a pass again. So that guidance is coming June 15th. By July 27th, that's when they hope to tell us which plan we have to start with. So as an example, if COVID really breaks out in the state again, they might tell us we have to start with distance learning. And there is no wiggle room. Or they might tell us that we have to start with distance learning, or if we can show we have the protocols in place to do hybrid, we could request a waiver to start with hybrid, but we'd have to have the plan all tested. That's the information that's coming out July 27th. The week of July 27th, I'm thinking is probably gonna be, as I said, closer to August 1st. Mimi? Did that answer it?
Yeah, that helped. I kind of got lost with all those dates. So with the group that's working on June 15th, are you going to use an existing group like our district advisory council, or who are you going to use, and are they scheduled to be working in the summer? And are we going to have a board member involved? I'm just wondering what that group looks like, because we know that June 15th they're going to start, or 16th or whatever. So I'm just wondering what the plan is with that.
With the group, I've been talking to some, the union reached out to me as far as there are two members as far as union people, as union representatives would like to be on the group. We need to have teachers of, high school teacher that has a subject matter that is a core subject matter. We need to have an elective because those are very different as far as how they're delivered. We need to have an elementary teacher. We need to have someone who's kind of a specials as far as either music or art or Phi-Ed, one of those special types, because there will be different guidance. It would be good to have a para, it would be good to have a bus driver, and it would be good to have a board member. Now, the teachers know, and I'll be talking to more of them tomorrow, that it is volunteer. Right now, because of social distancing, the meetings will be Zoom meetings. And even if they take away the free upgraded Zoom, we still have the free 40-minute up to 25 people Zoom. But we don't want 25 people in this group because then the group doesn't get anything done. It needs to be, I would like to keep the group 10 or fewer, because otherwise it just gets to be too, nobody wants to say anything. So that's what the plan is right now. Jean?
In terms of the teachers working on distance learning area, just want you to know that the Minnesota Department of Education gave all the teachers 25 continuing annual credits towards their 120. They got a certificate on it.
Yes, and it's toward the 125 they need every 5 years.
Yeah, they got 25 for the distance learning.
And I don't think any of our teachers, you take advantage of it if you need it, but we do enough in-house so that the teachers really don't have to go anywhere else if they don't want to renew a license. But yeah, it's very nice of MDE to do that. Okay, it was a longer update for that, but there was a lot of information this week.
Okay.
So am I hearing a consensus that until gyms and weight rooms are open, the Owen Onsgaard court stays shut?
That's what I said.
Yes, can I have a thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumb up, okay.
Okay.
Okay, and was there another question?
Yeah, I had one more. So when is our next board meeting?
The next board meeting,
Again before June 15th, or we are?
June 18th is the next one, and so if one of you would like to be considered on that committee, we would be meeting most likely during the day, but it would be on when those teachers are available. It's got to be a plan that works for teachers, and we need to work out the survey. So it's got to be a plan that works for parents too. The hybrid model is the one that really is the most daunting, because if we've got part of the students here, the parents need us to be providing something for the part that isn't here, because they can't put their lives on hold either. So we would need to plan for school-age daycare and different pods for that as well.
Can you confirm, I know in our district
Yes, I would like parents included. But once again, that we can't have so many people that the group gets unwieldy and we don't get things done. So it would be nice if we could have a parent, who has students in both the elementary and the high school, because those are,
You can cover all of this, but
it's two different concerns. Where they might not have a problem with leaving their high school student at home during the day if there's distance learning, but, I don't know many people that would feel comfortable leaving their elementary student at home during the day.
so if you have anybody out there that wants to volunteer for that position, that's pretty well. Maybe smiling.
I'm always smiling.
Is that a thumbs up, maybe? Okay, moving, let's see, where am I, ready?
Yep.
Okay, moving on, high school principal position. Right?
Okay, oops. I need it. Okay, with the high school principal position, we've got the guidance from MSBA there. And once again, the questions the school board members should ask, is this a budgeted position? And yes, looking at it, the starting salary is, at $95.
$140.
Correct. Plus only a 6% 403B match, where the current principal has a 10% 403B match, and there's, because the Minnesota Healthcare Savings Plan is for those dates, the sick days over 90, and this is a new person, there won't be any of that. So this would be a savings of $25,000 for a new principal. We have 6 candidates. All of them have a K-12 principal license. So if and when we have an opening, this person could be a principal for the entire on-site school, if the board chooses to go that way. It's not a license that hinders that. One of the applicants had a superintendent's license as well. With this, what I'd like to do is do Zoom interviews, and we would have 2 teachers, Mr. Bartz, myself, and Angela, on the interview committee. And then when we get it down to the final 2, there would be a second interview. And in that second interview, at that one, I would like to have 2 different teachers. And then what's worked in the past, if that's a face-to-face interview, which I'm hoping we're allowed to do, we have a student walk around and show the candidate the building and just have a casual conversation. And then we get that on the take of the student on the 2 top candidates as well. We've used that a lot in the past, and it's been with a lot of different students, and it's been very, very beneficial for the hiring committee. With this, I'm going to give you very generic qualities that we're looking for, because I know that if anybody's doing his or her homework, they would be wanting to watch the board meeting and then parrot back exactly what we say we want. So we need to have somebody who's very willing to work in a team. We need to have somebody that's really looking toward continuous improvement. We've got a lot of things going very well here, and we need somebody that can continue those positive things and expand on them. And we need somebody with that fundamental belief that all students can learn. We have the alternative school here. We have a level 3 program going in our DCG room, and we've got a lot of kids that are very, very talented, very intelligent, and so we've gotta have somebody that knows that all of those students can learn. Questions on that? Michaeline?
Just, wondering if you've used or have thought of having any paras or counselors on the committee, on the selection committee, instead of just teachers and other administrators, with an eye for paras in the high school, or under supervision of the principal, and, with an eye on equity and diversity type things that counseling might bring.
That would be a great addition to that second interview. So it's, we want a diverse pool, but we also, I know when Winona interviews, they've got 17 people sitting around the table, and then the interviewee is that's not a warm, welcoming environment. It works for Winona, it's just I can't see it working for us. Pete? Oh. There.
Yeah, my question is, has a deadline, have we reached the deadline as far as any applicants? Is this the total amount of applicants we're going to accept?
The posting was put in without a deadline, because I wanted to make sure that we got enough people, and if we didn't get an applicant that is really someone that's stellar, I wanted to keep it open longer. But we have some really, really impressive applicants. I think it's helped that, number one, Houston High School was just listed on the US News and World Report again as one of the gold medal schools. I think it has been a benefit to us that the community of Houston, one did actually come to town and drive around and said that Houston was a beautiful community. So we've got a lot of things going for us. And we had people in their application letters stating those things, that Houston is doing a lot of things right, and they would like to be a part of it.
So are we taking any more applications? Maybe that's kind of what people are learning. Are it still open till the first of July?
It is still open. I would like to start interviewing the week of June 15th, but that means that we'll convene the first interview committee and start looking at, I let Rick Bartz see all the applications so far. So he's been reading through them, I've been reading through them. And then we'll start looking, and Crystal, it's a great idea to have her part of that initial crew too. Mimi?
So, would ideally the person start July 1st, is that when it's done?
July 1st is when, June 30th is Todd's last day, as principal. And then, August 31st is his first day as a math teacher again. That July 1st is when it could start. If the interview committee said, this is not good enough, we already have it posted on MSBA. So we're going to wait until we get somebody we think is really going to be a good fit for Houston, someone who will add a lot to our school. We want a value add with this person. Todd has really big shoes to fill, and so we need somebody good.
So can we make sure, since Todd is still principal, can we make sure he's involved in the June 15th, all that work, so that we really have his input and expertise, so that he can then pass it over to the new person? I just want to make sure we have Todd involved
Well, the nice thing about Todd, he can be on the committee as the math teacher.
Well, I'd like him to be there as the principal, until he's no longer the principal, because I think he's gonna be providing some great input.
Yes.
And he can still work as a math teacher, but, I'd like for him to be involved as long as we can.
Or he's gonna be helping this guy during the transition anyway.
Yes, and I'm sure he will help his successor in that transition too, but he doesn't want to step on toes or make the person feel as if he's, or she is walking on eggshells. That's not good either.
Any other questions on that? Okay. Proposed budget?
Okay, so. You've got the proposed budget. In looking at funding, it looks right now as if we're going to keep our 2% for next year. That doesn't look like it's going to get pulled. So when we worked out the budget, we worked on it based on that 2%. For the 21-22 school year, next year's conversation about proposed budget is going to probably be very different than our conversation today. But in looking at the proposed budget, there are some things that we have in there. We are slated to buy a van because we'll have a van that will age out and can't transport children anymore. We've got a bus that we're slated to buy in 2022. And so we are putting $50,000 away this year. And then we'll just need $50,000 next year so we don't get hit by $100,000 for a bus in 1 year. So when you're looking at it and it looks like we're going to be 63 over budget, you remember that 50 of that is basically just sitting aside. So it's actually, so that we can budget for the bus the next year. Typically this is kind of a worst case scenario as far as we tend to do better than our proposed budget, but we don't wanna do a proposed budget that's pie in the sky and then get burned. So I would rather, hedge on the proposed budget and be very cautious, and then at the end of the year, find out where money to the good. Gwen, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
No, I don't think so. I think
You what?
What did you say?
you did a good job. Nothing to add.
Mimi?
So we're looking at the one for next year, right?
Correct.
The budget that's out there, the proposal?
Yep.
So if we go to the last page, it's looking like, so it looks good. Except when I look at the last page, it looks like, a lot of the reason it's good is because it's money going into our long-term facility maintenance, and that our fund balance is actually, our general fund balance is going down by 70. Is that, am I translating everything correctly?
It is, but some of, 50,000 of that is pulled out for that. So to get the true undesignated, you have to have 50,000, 1,335,000. So that puts us at the 6.5, which is pretty close to where we were for the adjusted budget for 20.
Okay, so what I'm wondering is when we look at the assumptions, is it possible to use long-term facility maintenance for this service refrigerator?
Yes, yeah, and we can use long-term facility maintenance for that. We'll have to fill out the right paperwork with Sarah Miller at MDE, but we just don't have any quotes on it yet, so that's why we don't have that in there. There's some of it that we probably won't because it's big on like for like, and when we get the new cooler in the kitchen, we're gonna put the condenser up on the roof so that right now, where it is, it's fighting with itself, so it produces heat, and so then the motor produces heat, and it works against the cooling that's actually going on. And so if we put it up on the roof, then it would be a more economical, cooler, and it wouldn't have some of the problems. It also will not have Freon. I don't think the Freon thing is the issue, but the, motor up on the roof as opposed to in the actual same cavity, that might be something where we can't use long-term facility maintenance. So that's, we talked about it, but I wanted to, once again, hedge on worst case scenario. So hopefully we can get at least, if not all of it, a large portion of it in long-term facility maintenance.
And
So, okay, so let's try to get as much as we can, because we love to use that for things, right? And
Yep.
then the other item that definitely needs to, and I'm not sure about the technology of it, if we need to have all that stuff in there right now, we can talk about that too, but I think we need a line item for COVID-19, the pandemic, and I think we need, I don't know how much, but I think we should budget a certain percentage. I just think we're going to have, I don't know, 20,000, 30,000, I don't know what the costs are, but I feel like it's gonna be a lot of extra costs, just jumping through hoops and dealing with your things, and I don't know, buying masks, buying thermometers, I don't know what we're gonna need to do, extra van trips, but I feel like we should probably budget something for that.
Well, and that's, you're bringing up a good point, and that's, some of the funding that, we can get from CARES. Some of that will be for, some PPE, some of that will be for some of those things that are due to the pandemic. And so as we get that funding, then we can figure out what we can put back into the proposed budget, and if we figure out we need it and we don't get the funding, then we'll have to come back and say, okay, we didn't get this funding, we will need to find a place for it in the budget. Because remember, as our proposed budget, we'll approve it, but then as things, as we get funding, or as we realize we need funding and we can't get it, then we have to tweak that parts of the budget.
You're saying can we add it or not add it right now?
I would say, Gwen and I have to go through those webinars first to see what funding we can get and what it can be used for. There's 3 different CARES fundings, there's 4 different GEARS fundings, and so we need to, what you're talking about, what we need money for, we absolutely need money for. But we didn't put it in the budget because we think that we can most likely apply for those other funding sources, so it doesn't have to come from the existing budget. Yeah, Pete? Just talk, they'll hear you.
Oh, okay. So these are programs that were only initiated due to the COVID-19?
Yes,
So there will be money there, we just don't know which ones we fit into.
right, we don't know what, we'll know the week of June 15th. Are you seeing yeah, well, it's one of those where they're gonna be really busy next week because they've promised us everything the week of June 15th.
Just a note too on the proposed budget. This still has those pictures in there at higher amounts. So it's got the high school principal in there at Johnson. It's got,
Dave Runnigan in there?
yeah, the Dave Vernigan, there's Susan Parker's in there.
that's why it's a proposed budget, just a wag.
Is it Mimi? Question?
Yeah, can we, and I know I'm sorry to, well, I feel like, well, I don't think we talked about this, we don't have a finance committee anymore, so I apologize if we don't have a finance committee, I have to ask these questions before the meeting is done, but, so I'd like to go over what those Chromebooks are and computers, and then also the projectors and the smart board, and where I'm going with this is I'm a little nervous about funding in the future, and I'm also
The Chromebooks for students, those are the ones that, needed to be rotated out of service because they've reached end of life. The computers for students, that's the high school computers because their desktop, Apples have reached end of life, and so that's what that was. The projectors and smart boards were, something that staff had requested, however, I can see putting that on hold. If we're not going to be here, I don't see the benefit of a smart board for distance learning. The other thing that we can look at is that, the Chromebooks for student, that rotation, there is the possibility that I think it was either one of the gear fundings or one of the CARES funding was for technology. One of the gears funding was for technology. So it might be that we can apply for some funding through a gears funding and have that pay for those. And then we could take that money that we've got in the budget earmarked for the Chromebooks and have a different funding source for it, and then that 52,000 or the 50,700 comes back into the general budget again. But it all depends on the CARES and the gears as far as what other funding we can find.
To answer your question, I think there's a lot of open-ended information here, because until we get all the funding, this is a proposed budget, I'd rather have it high than low. We have, kind of where do we wanna go with it? All those are good suggestions and ideas what we need to look at, but I think when we get the information from the gears and the CARES program and what we can get from that, where we can fit it into our budget, what we need, what we don't need. That refrigerator, I'd be surprised if we can't get it, because I think some of the refrigerators now, they don't have condensers on top inside buildings anymore. I think a lot of them have gone onto the roof, so there may not be a way of getting a like for like. So I would address it that way.
Yep.
And say we can't get one like we had before, we would, but we can't. Because it doesn't meet code or whatever you can come up with. But I think that's something you need to push through, so that would make a change there. And the COVID-19 thing, again, once we get that information from the gears and the CARES program, we can revisit the finances. And if we have to have a small finance committee meeting on what we can use that money for and what we feel it will fit into for meet our needs, I think that'd be a good idea.
And the other thing is things start opening up. Right now, we are not having the committee meetings because there's not really a way to keep them open because people were not able to come to the building. Now as things open up and we can maybe in July talk about going back to having actual committee meetings face to face again. And then if people want to, we can do it in a socially distanced way, and we can have chairs 6 feet apart, and we can actually meet in the gym. And we could set chairs out at 6-foot intervals for anybody that wanted to come, and we could do committee meetings again. Mimi?
Yeah, I don't know if this needs to be said per se, but going back to the bus thing, we have to provide transportation for everyone. I mean, we can't afford to buy more buses.
No.
I mean, can't. So that's a sort of, there are certain things that we can budget for, and I don't know, it's 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, we can cover the cost with if we have to. We can't buy 2 more 80,000 buses just so we can provide transportation. So there's a limit to what we can, and so we just need to look at it from a finance perspective, and that would be the benefit of having a board member to kind of involved in some of this, because I'm just speaking
And that's, with transportation, they understand that right now, the guidance they're giving is impossible for schools. They understand that what they're saying is not really feasible for those of us that have, for those of us in more rural communities, and they said it's not feasible for the schools in the metro either. So they said that it's really not, they understand that it's not feasible, so they're going to be working on making sure that the guidance actually is something that is feasible for schools. So you're absolutely right, Mimi. But right now, until we get that new transportation guidance, that's not gonna come to us on the 15th. That's going to be trickling in as the summer goes on, and I don't know if we're actually gonna get a final guidance on that until maybe August 1st. But they did say that that was coming, but it's, it's, there are no easy answers there. There are no easy answers.
Any other questions? Anybody have any other questions here? Okay. Annual fundraising report?
Okay, Todd and Rick gave the fundraising reports, and with the high school, concession stand, actually over 50% was profit this year, which is much better than it's been in years past. So we've got, out of sales of 33,000, we have profit of 27,000. So that, yeah, 9/11ths, which is, it's very good. It's almost 90% profit. For the elementary school, we've got 12.5 thousand and 9,000 in profit. And so once again, that is also a very strong profit margin. Because I know that in the past, the board has looked at things and said that the profit should be a higher percentage. And so they have really, the principals have really been working with that. Questions on fundraising? Mimi?
So that concession stand goes all towards prom and yearbook?
Yes. The concession stand profit for boys football, there's girls football. So for football and for girls basketball goes to the junior class. So instead of prom, it really should say junior class, because it's not just prom that it pays for, it also pays their senior year. That's the lion's share of paying for their class composite and the programs for graduation and the flowers. So it does more for graduation than it does for prom. But that's the big fundraiser for our junior class, that most of it's used their senior year.
I know that we pay for, like, it's not paying for the expense of the manager.
It can't pay for the expense of the manager. You can't use activity funds to pay salaries. That's not legal.
Let's just donate less to the groups then and cover our expense.
That's not, you can't take the expense out of the profit. That's not, we can't do that.
Can't we keep the profit from the concession stand? Can't we use it as school revenue from the concession stand?
Which are those groups getting it?
It's an activity fund that would, under GASB and the student activity accounts, except that's the one fund, okay, Gwen?
We can't transfer money from the general fund to cover expenses. And you can't pay payroll from there to over.
it's not providing, and Josh, I see that your hand is up, but it's not providing more than they need. In fact, with the yearbook, the students that are working for yearbook, it defrays the cost of their yearbook, so their yearbooks are able, they can actually afford to purchase the yearbook. And it is defraying the cost. The yearbook is still, if we didn't have that fund for a yearbook, the yearbooks would be so expensive, I don't know who could afford them. And for the junior class, the class composite that hangs on the wall is quite expensive. The programs that we do different programs for graduation than what are typical. Most places just have the little 8.5 by 11 that's folded over. And we actually do a whole booklet, and that is expensive, but I think it's worth the price. Josh?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah?
I get it. So the question made me ask though is, can we collect profit from the concession stand? And so we can, correct?
We do collect profit.
So
Concession
the
stand,
question
we
would
get
be,
that money.
do we just, we can't figure how much it distributed to the areas like where we cover the expense of the worker and then distribute it?
No.
We can't pay any salaries. We can't pay any salaries from that money at all. That is not, it is not legal.
You
We
wouldn't-
can't
You
do
wouldn't have
that.
any workers, would you?
No,
Right, you'd have to,
You want to pay some schools that collect their concession stands as profit, isn't there?
we did a survey before from other concession stands as far as when Lisa Shetty was our AD. Some of them have it where different groups take each section, and so they sign up for different games, but the profit goes to that group running the concession stand. Our concession stand used to be run through the Booster Club, and the Booster Club, yeah. Any other questions on that? Jean?
Looking at the one volleyball and cookie dough, it seems like our students are kind of working for the cookie dough company because we did not get very much profit. So we only got 30 cents or 30
Yeah, that's far more.
cents. Usually we should try to get 50 or 60
Yeah,
percent
cookie dough.
profit from the school market.
Gene, you're very correct there. That's not good.
It's never good.
Yeah, it's,
Never has been. It is good because people.
I did a lot of fundraisers when I was coaching softball and football. And looking at this, the sales for the cookie dough and the profit, that's not very good. That should be very much like Gene says, that should be a 50-50 approximately. It's gonna vary from one item to another, but clearly that didn't generate funds like it should have from sales.
well, the poinsettia was about the same percent.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
But for years past, neither one of those have produced.
No, there are fundraisers out there that you can do that are far more financially rewarding to the groups. We did a lot of research on that, when we were doing fundraisers.
Any other questions on? Okay, and then the next thing is the field trips. Field trips, you'll notice, the science exploration, Marty Momsen, took a van over to St. Mary's, and that was our last one. The spring field trips were all canceled, and the big field trips that we typically take at the elementary school, we did get one in to the La Crosse Symphony on March 11th before they shut everything down. But the 6th grade class trip, the trip to Hickston Forest, the the other, field trips that the kids look forward to, those all, because usually we have an entire page of field trips from the elementary school. And that just did not happen this year. Questions on any of those?
Resolution.
Oh, Mimi?
Yeah, sorry, kind of field trip, but not really field trip. What day did we need to, was it the Washington DC trip that we tentatively approved?
Yes.
What's the date that we need to cancel that by?
Oh,
August or September.
it was the end of September, beginning of October.
Okay, I just wanna make sure we don't miss the chance to cancel that. I have thoughts it's probably a low possibility, but.
Mike Diekman, will be coming in during the summer, and he also, is he is the lead advisor for that trip. So he's been watching that, and, any monies that the students give is just left in, the safe right now. He's not cashing checks yet until he knows that, and the students know that, so the parents will know that when they balance their checkbook, there's this big outstanding check. But we're not cashing those until we know that the trip is a go and the money should be cashed. Thank you.
Anything else on that? So now we have the
Hit,
resolution.
hit your mic.
Okay, now we have the resolution establishing dates for fulfilling applicants and candidacies.
This will be approved next time. This is just.
Any questions on that? Anybody wants to, apply or re-up? It's coming up soon.
Everybody knows the three that are up this time? Yep, so it's Mimi, Mike, and Jean are the three that, on December 31st, their term ends.
Do we need to send them out papers so they can file them? Send it in.
If we need to send the papers, yeah, we can.
Let us know if we need to mail them out to you guys, then you can just, I'll pay for the stamps. What do you say?
It begins July 28th, and then it closes on August 11th. So you would either come here and pay the $2 filing fee, prior to 5 o'clock on August 11th. Or if you wanted to mail that in, you could. Gwen? Oh, is it Josh? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay, sorry. Okay,
thank you.
nope, no,
Josh,
it's
Mimi, and
Josh.
Colleen.
Josh, Mimi, Michaeline, thank you.
Okay. So we're done with that.
Unmute yourself.
Okay, policy committee decision. Okay, I'm muted again.
Okay. With the policy meeting, annually, we look at, those policies that we do not yet have in our policy, our Houston Policy Manual. And we've looked at some of these in the past and decided that they are not right for us, but, now with, this year, I don't know if you think that they might, hold some, do all of you have access to these policies with your MSBA account? If you go, you've got your login information for MSBA, and then if you go to resources and policy, the policy manual is there, and you can look at any one of these policies.
We need to review them now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
on your own, if you could,
Ones that we don't have already in our system, there's
Right.
more than what we have in our policies
oh, is that,
that we don't use because a lot of them don't apply to
Oh,
us,
correct.
but maybe now they may.
correct? Yeah.
So-
We need to read them.
So, if there, as you're looking through those, if there is one more or more that you feel that really would be, necessary or prudent for our district to look at, and potentially adopt, please let me know, and then that could be added, those policies could be added for first read, and then we could discuss whether that should be a policy that is adopted in our policy manual. We need to make sure that if we have a policy, we're following it. So some people have asked why we don't just adopt every MSBA policy, and I don't know if we could keep track of all the different guidelines we're supposed to be following then. The ones we do have, we know them, and we know that we're following them, or we know when to look to them for that guidance. I don't want to adopt a policy just for the sake of adopting a policy. Questions on that? Michaeline?
I don't have any as much questions as a couple of comments. I took some time looking through this. I believe that a mandatory policy is policy 722, and we have not got policy, or my records, I don't see policy 722 as a policy. So we definitely need to get that adopted if it is not. And then, the thing with these policies, these MSBA policies, is that they have been vetted by, so that the legal use is, that's what we're paying for, them to be vetted. We have done work in the past years and policy reviews in separating guidelines and procedures out of the policy so that those can be changed as needed without having to go in and redo the policy. So I think we've taken care to do that. I do think there are several other policies that maybe we want to think about. I mean, we're paying for these policies, and which ones does it make sense to have, not to adopt the policy just for policy's sake. But I don't like being in a position of we have an issue and we have no policy that is giving us guidance, and then we're scrambling to respond to a situation, and we need to then develop a policy in reaction rather than neutral. Couple of policies, I will send them to you, Corinne. I have some that I think we should maybe want to look at or putting in policy book. They are more recent MSBA policies, like 2019. And there have been a couple here, like, we've talked a couple of times on adopting the 701 and 701.1, which are policies governing the adoption of a budget and modifications to the budget. And although some of these policies are largely governed by statute, it's also, we've talked about the need to maybe have some of those. So I guess I have a list of those that I think are reasonable to be considered, not just to have another policy, but because there is a reason to have it, to be ahead of situation. Service animals, for example. We're going to have a situation sometime where we have service animals, and what's an emotional support animal and what's a service animal that's going to govern that. I mean, I see this every year where I work, and it's just nice to have a policy there. So that's all I have to offer there.
So you will be sending me the list of policies you'd like included next time?
I will do that. It's not just me. I'm just one person on the board. I don't want anything done just because I think it should be done. Would hope that you could maybe send those out so the board can see what I was looking at, and that they would also look at all of them. I'm not trying to railroad this, and just it's a conversation.
Well, if you any board member can request that something is on the board agenda, and if you are requesting us to look at policies, of course, they would be sent out to the board members ahead of time.
Yeah, we appreciate you looking into it. I know policies are very hard, so.
Room consents around here and there.
Oh,
I would ask that we look into policy 722. Do you know about that, Corinne? Do you know if we have that one? Because I couldn't find it. And it's a mandatory policy at MSBA.
I don't see that yet, rather than our list.
what year was that one out?
It's not on my list, so then it would, oh, hold on. Okay, it's not on my list here, and so I put down the ones that, I will double check that, because looking at this list, I would think that it was on mine, and it might be on mine, and it might not be in our on-site list. So,
I couldn't find it either in the policy committee area or on the public-facing list of policies, so, but it's on public data requests, and I know that those are governed by statute, but this is also a mandatory policy for school districts to have. So we need to maybe follow up on that one.
and I know when I was making the list, I was looking at our 3-year review guidance. And so it's on our 3-year review, so it might be that we adopted it and it didn't make it into the actual on-site or online forms. So we'll check on that. Thank you.
Any other questions on policies? Thanks, Michael. So strategic planning for marketing, Brent?
Okay, last year we never had a goal for marketing, and just as a reminder, when we do our district goals, they tend to be more all-encompassing because the individual schools write their goals from our goals, and when we have very tight SMART goals at the district level, it was very difficult for the schools to really do what was necessary to have continuous improvement because they really felt constrained by that. So we've typically had those broad goals like technology utilization, and they could do their own SMART goal basically within that. We did have last year we said we were going to develop the community access channel by April 30th, which was done. And then we brainstormed about possible events, but it was our brainstorming, and not that that's a bad thing, but I think it's high time that we talk to the community and see how many people actually appreciate Education Matters, or what things would they rather see in Education Matters. Do they know we've got a Twitter account? Would they access our Twitter account? Do they know we have the Houston High School Facebook? Do they access that? A lot more are now, because they can watch Todd run around like a freak on the football field on Monday nights. He's done with that now. But they can actually, the graduation's gonna be streamed live on our Facebook. Our community access channel. I'm seeing if I can actually get something to play on there, like a video, instead of just a PowerPoint. So far, I haven't had a lot of success, but I'm gonna keep trying other things. But we need to market. If we're marketing to our community, to our parents and our students, we need to meet them where they are. And so which of those do they really enjoy? Which would they like to expand? Which do they want, is there something else that we're not providing that they'd like? Mimi?
Yeah, I think that, just my opinion, based on where we are right now this year, it needs to be the year of communication. I think that we don't really get that many communications from the school. I
And did you, because as a parent of an elementary student, did you get the, and actually high school students, the parents of high school students got it too, but the email about the different webinars that MDE was having with the different literacy things that could be done, and a webinar on the different things that you could do as far as activities with your students this week?
I did, but I did not, I don't think I got an email about the summer reading program here in Houston, or the Meet Up and Eat Up. So I did get the thing about the state, but I really, and that's great, but I think that we really need to be looking at the opportunities here in Houston, and if there's a chance that, you know, just getting the kids out of the house to go to the library to pick up a bag, you know, and yeah, it's local stuff. So I don't think an email went out with that. So
Oh,
I
okay.
just, in general, I think, you know, marketing is really communication, right? And I just think that that's the one thing we need to be better at right now, is just, I don't think we can over communicate at all. I just, there's no such thing as too much communication right now, just in my opinion.
So you didn't get something, because the school, Judy and Barb both got the email about Meet Up and Eat Up, and so you didn't get that one?
I could read the record.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Very well could have went out and I didn't see it, but
Okay. I can have it sent again tomorrow with the Eat Up and Meet Up and the, or the Meet Up and Eat Up and the library information can be on there too.
don't rush to do anything, and if it was sent, don't resend it. I mean, just ask, but in general, I think that as those opportunities come up, we need to really be promoting and providing. I mean, I don't know how to best parent a child through a pandemic. I don't. And I'm, you know, got lots of kids, and I've never done this before. And I'm open to whatever advice the school could offer me. You know, maybe it's really important that we meet up with one friend once a week, or I don't know, get into a routine of something, but just advice. You know, have your child read a all summer. I don't know. Whatever, I'm open to advice, and I think other parents are too, because we're all kind of flying blind here. And like I said, I just think this is the year of communication to the community and to the parents. My 2 cents.
Okay.
No, it's good.
No, it's good. Well, because I know Crystal had some things and Jill Diana had some things. And I thought those went out, but we can make sure that we send, we can maybe do a weekly thing all summer, which would be probably good, just to have that connection to let people know that, school is still here and we still care. And we're making plans for the fall.
And if parents have ideas or thoughts, you know, to send them in.
Right. So we can direct people to that, either one of the feedback forms, because we'll get that.
And, you know, I think maybe some of the parents should use the feedback form for maybe questions, concerns, or even ideas. I think it would be a good idea to have those, you know, like you mentioned a few things, and, you know, there's a lot of people out there that have a lot of good ideas and things that they do that are successful, but if we don't share that, you know, we don't all know about them. So I think it's a good opportunity for us as a community to help each other out. So, we got more on this?
No.
Any questions on the marketing? We know the links that we have available to us. Maybe have some great ideas. Does anybody else have any other thoughts? Brainstorm possible events? And you know. Move right along. Old business, items for discussion and approval. First version of math, the new math program we talked about last time. We approve that. approve that?
I so move.
James seconded. Okay, discussion. Anybody have questions on the new math program we talked about last time?
It was asked last time if we were locked in for the whole 6 years. Pearson said that, we can end at any time, so if we find out after 1 year that it does not work for us, we can get out of the contract. So there is an escape clause.
So we have to pay the whole 6 years, or is it prorated each year?
It's year by year. And you could see in the proposed budget, there was the 1 year, license for it in the budget.
6,000. Any further questions on that? So a motion, we have a second. All in favor, we'll do a roll call vote. Ron?
Aye.
Josh? Mike Lane? Mimi? Jean? Pete?
Aye.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the FY20 adjusted budget. Ron? And the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, second, discussion. Anybody have any questions on the adjusted budget? Okay, all in favor, we'll do a roll call vote again. Ron?
Aye.
Josh?
It was
Mike Lane? Mimi? Jean? Pete?
Aye.
Thank you. New business, item for discussion and approval. Teachers on call.
And typically, we don't approve something on the first read through. With COVID, as we were reaching out to people that have subbed for us in the past, they are not so sure. They are comfortable coming in and subbing for us. And with the online teachers have been very reticent because before the online teachers would fill in for a fellow teacher. They would get paid for it, but they have decided that is, because we get subs for the on-site, it's not equitable if we don't get subs for them as well. We have found teachers on call. It is the same substitute placing business that is used by La Crescent, it's used by Caledonia, it's used by Rushford, it's used by Spring Grove, and it's used by Winona. All the area schools are using it already, so that would expand our sub pool in great numbers. We would let the subs who typically sub here know that we are going with teachers on call. There is a spreadsheet in your packet that you could have looked at before where according to the dollar amounts that are there, those are dollar amounts that are set for Houston as far as what our sub pay is and what their costs would be, that we would actually be saving money going with teachers on call instead of filling from our own teachers to try to cover hours because we can't find a sub. The other thing that really makes this, they won't cover just the online, they won't do just MNVA, they do whole districts. So the only way we can get them to provide subs for MNVA is if we also got into contract with them so they provided subs for Houston Elementary, Houston High School, and Summit as well. What? Oh. Okay. So, try to log back in again, Tom. Ron, you have a question? You're on.
If you go with the exclusive, then you have to get that.
Yes, And that's one of the reasons what we've really been dragging our feet, because we really haven't had a problem filling subs on site, because we've got the tried and true, except, now with COVID, some of our tried and true aren't so sure they wanna come back into the building. And we really have, I don't like calling it an issue, but that's what it is. We have an issue with MNVA, and we needed to find a way to find substitutes for the online world. Teachers on Call is the only subsystem that I could find that would actually be willing to place subs, and they have trained subs for that work at Connections Academy as well. So they understand the online platforms. But I would, they would like the, contract signed, as soon as possible, so they can get into that, take the substitutes that they have that would be willing to do online and train them in on our platform, so they're good to go on the first day of school. Does anybody have any questions?
If I understand it, Corinne, we're kind of backed into a corner, because otherwise we wouldn't have enough subs to handle it. So I'm not so sure we have much of a choice.
Which is why I've got it on here for approval too.
Right, right.
If it's any consolation, the person that I've talked to on Teachers on Call is Wayne Gilman, and you know Gail Gilman, his sister. Gail is the one from MSBA that has come to do the board retreat with us.
So now that I'm back, does anybody have any questions? So do we have a motion to approve? James, do I have a second?
I saw Michael.
Michael, thank you, Mike. Roll call vote, Ron? Josh? Okay, Mike Lane? Mimi? Jean? Pete?
Aye.
We have policies for first reading. We talked about earlier, we'll take a chance, 60 times and read policies, 807. If you have something that you need to add, we've got a couple, please send them in. Anything to add to that, Michael? Okay, announcements, sporting events.
Today was the last day of school. So we have almost crossed the finish line. Tomorrow is graduation. It's at 7 o'clock. It's in the front lawn of our school. The students will have a parking spot for their family. There will be a chair for the graduate. The radio station is 104.1. It broadcasts in a good 4-block radius. So if somebody wanted to park along the teardrop, they could get the radio station. Rick Rosted is providing some larger speakers so that the graduates don't have to be in a car to listen to the radio, but the cars have to listen to the radio because we can't socially distance the cars and get them all to fit, so they'll have to sit with their windows up, but it shouldn't be that hot. But the radio station is very clear. If you want to sit in the park and listen to the radio station, it'll come in at the park. It comes in, Grand to Maple is where it starts coming in, and then if you kind of draw a big circle from the school, Jean, you'll probably be able to get it at home. So that's a radio station. It's also, Alexa Michaels is helping out and is going to be on Facebook Live And so everyone who can't get the radio station can get it on Facebook Live if you're on Facebook. If you're not on Facebook, afterwards, we're going to upload it to YouTube. So it's going to be archived and put on our website, so you can watch it after the fact, but if you want to watch it live, Facebook Live, it'll be there on the Houston High School Facebook page. We've got everything organized that by about 7:45, we've got the route through town marked. It's been posted on Facebook, so that we've also, Ellen also put it in the banner. The one thing she forgot to add is that people need to stand on the passenger side of the car to wave, because the graduate's going to be on the passenger side, not on the driver's side. So none of the graduates are allowed to drive through themselves. They have to sit on the passenger side and wave. There's a lot of moving pieces. It was a lot to plan, but I think it's going to really turn out quite good. Graduation, hopefully you all got the link to graduation for MNVA. That's on Sunday at 2 o'clock. We can log on and watch that one too. And then Monday, we can start digging in with inventory, see what hasn't come back, and start looking at what we need to do to start the planning process the next week. But those are the events of this week.
Okay, so for me and I, coming in before the graduation, do you want us to do a spot over here park, or where do you want us to, and what time? 6:30 is normal.
And 6:30 works just fine. We'll have chairs for you. I will have gloves for you to wear, and Todd's daughter-in-law sewed individual masks for all of us with their hurricane masks, gray with red ties. And so for parking, the gravel area, the teachers are going to be parking facing in the faculty parking lot. They'll be parked on the paved part, so if you wanted to park on the gravel part, then that's not taking somebody else's spot, because you're gonna be sitting up in front.
Right, I just
Yep.
want to make sure you can do what you.
Yep. And we had already talked about no heels.
Do you have any questions, Jamie? I know you're coming in, I appreciate that.
Are you saying park back are you saying park towards the elementary school or park back by the shop?
Oh, no, toward the elementary school, on the gravel, by the light pole.
Yeah, I'll avoid, because I put a lot of thought into those heels.
Well, Ron does have some snowshoes for you if you don't want to wear something. Okay, any questions on that? So meeting and committee updates, and marketing we discussed tonight, anything else, Chris?
We don't have a meeting next Thursday. It's the first time, it'll be the first time in 6 weeks, we don't have a Thursday meeting. So our next meeting is scheduled for June 18th, and then we don't have another meeting scheduled until the third Thursday of July. So that's, and then we should probably start looking at whether we should have committee meetings face-to-face again. Not that I mind having it as a whole group, but it makes for a very long board meeting when we have the committee meetings as part of the board meetings. And
In July?
and I'm wondering if we should start in July with committee meetings. The June, we'll still have facilities during the June 18th meeting.
Okay, don't forget, if somebody wants to volunteer for the group, the week of the 15th, correct, Corinne?
Mhm.
Make sure Corinne knows. Any questions or comments on that? Do you have anything else to add, Corinne?
I would just personally like to thank the teachers that gave me the beautiful bouquet, and I would like to tell them that I appreciate them too. They came in with just a gorgeous floral arrangement for me, and it it made my day, and it also made me cry, but they were happy tears, so that was good.
So do we have a motion to, Jean? Oh, Michael has a question for you.
I went to the LEN meetings, and, my team resigned, I went to work for, our county, American. So, we got one person that works with him, and that's Blake, and he's international nerd. And, Blake says the last, couple weeks now, last week, I was up to, Minneapolis, International Nerd, there with the, George Floyd, situation. But, now he is back in Fairmont, quarantine, I guess, for a few days. But, we did, decide to go in with the, outside sourcing instead of having a key person. So I had to have, Joe put in a little, but, he was overpriced compared to what we got from the Midwest. We went with the Midwest for the team work. So that's a couple of things there. The other thing is, we can start school early and work initiative and other state because for Labor Day, because it is going to be fair. And I don't think we'll look at the calendar and they just. And the other thing, I really think that is, I mentioned smart boards. I said that schools are going away from smart boards. I had a lot of problems with them. Everybody was 65-inch TVs, smart TVs and stuff. And for, smart board cost them about $3,500. And the teachers like the big TVs there. Just, mention. Okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Jean. Michael, you have something?
Well, I was just gonna share, it kind of gets to Mimi's talking about the communications things. I'm sure you all got an invitation from MSBA to do one of their webinars. There was, lessons learned. I attended that, was earlier this week, and it was, hosted by MSBA, and the Northfield superintendent and the board chair from Winona. They were just sharing what lessons they had learned and what they were doing. Not unfamiliar to us at all. It was just, I guess the two takeaways I had was, one of them was the superintendent's like, communication. He's worried about over communicating, and he said, not a chance. The more ways that he is communicating with his teachers and parents and the community and everything has been, so it's easy enough for people to hit the delete, but the information needs to be easily accessible and out there, and outreach. And then the board chair from Winona had, just talked about how much surveying community had been informative to them as a board. I don't know what they were discussing, but they've had really surprisingly good responses on their parent surveys. So it was interesting to hear what other school districts, they said, we're not thinking about fall yet, we're still trying to land the plane for this year, before we can get ready to take off again, but it's all in everybody's mind. So I just wanted to share that because time those things for sure.
Thanks, Michael.
I'm gonna
Thanks,
have-
Jean. Fran?
Also want to let you all know, as far as communicating, the online counselors, the three of them, individually called every MNVA student or tried to, left a message if no one answered. After the civil unrest in the cities, they wanted to reach out to every child to make sure that if the child needed a counselor to talk to, they were there. If there were any questions as far as things they were concerned about. So the counselors did within 4 days, reach out to every single student at MNVA. And I know on site, Jill Diana has been really working at reaching out, and Crystal has also been doing that. So it's necessary to make sure our children, and as Mimi said, we don't know what it's like to go through a pandemic. This is new for all of us, and the only of us that would know what it's like are those that are 100 years old or so. So, yes, Jean?
You're muted.
You're still muted, Jean.
John and Kristen did a very good job on the Wardsburg presentation.
Yep,
Thanks, Jane.
thank you. I will let them know you said that.
Okay, anything else before we adjourn? Okay, you have a motion to adjourn? Jean, do I have a second?
Second.
Pete? Okay. Discussion? All in favor? Roll call vote? Okay. Josh? Okay, Mike Lane? Mimi? Jean?